Hey guys, it's Kiriverse, and welcome to another Mobile Maybe. I play mobile games and review them so that you guys can maybe think about playing them too. So sit back, enjoy, and hopefully I'll see you at the end of the video. Okay, so I said in my last video, review for Solaria, that if it did well, I'd make a tier list of all the heroes I thought were best to worst. Well, obviously the video did well enough because I am here. And I actually really like this game, so I'm excited to do this. Also, two things. One, before I put them into tiers, I'm going to go over their stats and then show you a little gameplay for every hero that's out so far. Two, I have permission from the dev team that I could use their art in my videos, so I'll show some of that between things as well. So I hope you enjoy every piece that I show, because they have great artists working on this game, like for real. Also, just so you are aware, this game is still in early development and everything that I'm talking about could change by the time you see this, so just be aware of that. Okay, so let's start off with the first character you're introduced to in the game, and that's Ember. Ember is a fire mage that loves dealing boatloads of damage, so when looking at her stats, you should probably focus on those that would benefit her playstyle. Fire damage stats, critical chance, critical damage, evasion, ultimate charge, and move speed would be the best stats to have handy when you put armor on her. Which, I find it really interesting that yes, you have natural base stats that you start out with, but all of your damage, defense, and so on is solely due to equipment. Which isn't bad, that's kind of normal in a way. I just hope that when this game officially launches that we keep getting really good item drops when we beat bosses and open loot chests. Her skill tree increases damage output, honestly. She's a damage dealing machine and her kit is set up for victory, absolute victory. Obviously someone on staff has a favorite. Next is Leo the Lightning Knight, a mid-level melee fighter that has good AoE and DPS. With Leo's stats, you should lean more towards armor, damage, lightning damage, crit, and health. He's great at mowing down a lot of squishy enemies, but he's extremely squishy himself. And in tougher fights where enemies have more defense, he struggles a lot. Even with Tarek, it is highly likely in the early levels you will die to him in just a few hits, so try and play towards having him just be a wave clearer. And for those of you who did not see my first video, Tarek is one of the early level bosses. It's also interesting how the armor system works. When you stack a certain amount of armor, it also increases your damage reduction, which I think is kind of overpowered considering the turtle, but interesting nonetheless. 4,000 points of armor gives you 40% damage reduction. 3,000 more provides 25% damage reduction. And another 3,000 on top of that gives you another 15% damage reduction. So 10,000 armor plus the 80% damage reduction is absolutely incredible. Just think, let's say you have 4,000 armor with 40% damage reduction to start with. The average grunt at the start of the game that does at most 10 points of damage, that's just like a ballpark figure there. Removing armor piercing and other special abilities. Even if you only had 100 HP, grunts only doing 10% of that wouldn't even crack the surface of your thickness. Double C's thickness. Now, that's just a loose example. When you are full build using the right hero, this will make you invincible, I think, depending on how strong future enemies are. But that's crazy, dog. Anyway, back to Leo. His character sheet currently is the only one in the game that has actual information about what his attacks do. With every other champ, it's all Latin gobbledygook, but even when translated, it still makes a little sense. Someone was smoking something when they wrote this up. His passive allows him to stack 3 thunder buffs every time he defeats an enemy by 10%, which allows him to zoom around the map at a 30% speed increase. Basically permanently, due to the fact that he mows down enemies fairly quickly. His second ability is his Spin to Win, where he deals damage equal to 40% of his attack stat every 0.5 seconds. Which, again, you tank him up and his natural base stats are already beefy, then you have yourself a good hero right here. Then finally, his ultimate. He leaps into the air, becoming immune for 1 second, and then deals AoE damage equal to 155% of his attack stat. I don't know how the math works, but it works. With 30% damage from his lightning mastery, stunning enemies and leaving lightning marks on them. I'm not 100% sure what lightning marks do. I suppose they stack lightning damage when applied, but that's just a guess. His skill tree starts off with health and then increases the stats of your main stats and abilities. Main stats as in attack stat and lightning stat. Next up we have flora and fauna, but I'll just be referring to flora since fauna doesn't have separate stats. Only stats I'd have her improve are health, healing, nature mastery, speed, and ultimate cooldown stats. Everything else would be useless on her because, well, she's basically useless unless she's spamming those flowers. Her skill tree stat boosts focus on giving her more armor and healing, and once you eventually get there, you'll unlock the ability to have one extra flower. But yeah, that's basically it. Okay, now we move on to our guy Zap. With this little Thunder Samurai, the stats that you want to focus on are his health, his attack stat, movement, crit, lightning mastery, and lightning damage. Zap is all about that burst damage and taking out enemies quickly. He's a glass cannon, but a good one. His skill tree is all attack, attack, and more attack. For Toga, his stats are just basically, you build armor. Health, ice mastery, and attack. Even if he just went all armor, he'd probably pretty much invincible anyway. And his skill tree is basically giving him and any hero swapped out with him more armor when you use his abilities. Next is Rin. What can I say about this hero? Don't use her. But if I had to stat boost her, I would focus on ice mastery, ice damage. But that's about it. Also health, throw that in there. Okay, now another one of my favorite characters. Fadum. Doom, Doom, however you say his name. Dr. Melcher Face-Off Guy has one of the best kits and stats in the game in my opinion. He's all DPS and getting those massive bursts of damage with his abilities. So the stats you should focus on for him would be nature damage, nature mastery, speed, attack, critical hit, and ultimate cooldown stat. He's all about melting down enemies quickly, and the more damage output you have on him, the faster that will be. His skill tree consists of him gaining some unique abilities, which is him being able to melt enemy armor and gain a speed boost when he falls below 35% of his health. And saving the best for last, we got my boy Olaf. I'm the best character in the game, and here's the reason why. The stats you should focus on Olaf are health, attack, crit, armor, and ice damage. Only those because there are some armor in the game that allows you to have lifesteal with your attacks, and that's where his core stat is in. His skill tree is just his stats and skills being upgraded slightly, dealing more damage, having larger radius, and him gaining more crit and attack damage. Okay, we got through all of their stats, so let's move on to gameplay, abilities, and strats you and anybody else who wants to play this game can use with these characters. Alright, so let's start off with Ember. Her basic attack is a 3-hit long-range blast of fire that, with every third hit, explodes and does extra damage to the enemy you're attacking, and anything that is standing in the area of the blast, proccing burn stacks on said enemies. The range of her basic attack actually seems to be infinite. You can usually tell when a long-range attack ends when you hear the impact sound effect, but when I played, it just seemed to keep going until I hit an object or a rise in the terrain far off into the distance. Her first ability is her AoE damage move, where she uses a long-range spell to rain down burning fire onto her enemies, slowing them, applying the burn effect, and doing a butt ton of damage. Honestly, just keep spamming this move and you'll mow through enemies fairly quickly. The radius for this move is huge too, not even gonna lie. Her third ability is her teleport, which is just an easy way to disengage if you want to, or to jump into a group of enemies and cause a lot of burst damage. This is not her best ability, and I only ever use it if I want to move faster or finish enemies off as an execution, but yeah. Okay, so for combos, starting with her first ability, use the very far edge of the circle to engage with the enemy, And as I walk through it, use your basic attacks to stack up burn damage. For you guns blazing type player, you crazy people, you can use your first ability and immediately go into using your second for a 1-2 hit combo. Although I'd stick with the first because Ember is all about utilizing her range. Gotta take advantage of that infinite basic attack range, guys. You gotta. Her passive is a heal that goes off after you drop below a certain amount of health. I haven't given specific numbers on when that triggers, but I'm guessing 50% below or 45% below health. As far as how you should play her, just keep kiting. You do so much damage and are fast enough to always stay ahead of your opponents. You could probably try and go for no damage run with Ember and probably succeed depending on the map and the enemies. And at first I thought that your ultimate just increased the gauge over time with basic attacks, but I was wrong. It's solely from taking out enemies or hitting them with abilities. And Ember has one of the best ults in the game. She shoots off a huge blast of fire that deals big damage, scorching the earth and heavily burning enemies hit by it, lasting for about 4 seconds after being cast. I love Ember. She's one of my 3 favorites, and she's always going to be on my go-to list for good runs of the game for sure. Okay, now for our boy in blue, Leo the Lightning Knight. I already talked about Leo's moves earlier in the video, but I'll add a bit more detail on some smaller things here. His basic attacks don't seem to trigger his lightning stacks. Only after he's used an ability does the stack apply. You can see the difference when he swings his sword before and after, with his sword being coated in electricity after an ability and not before. Combos are pretty simple, and with his playing style you don't really need that much. Shield dash into enemies and then spin to win, charging up your ultimate and then using it to finish off or chunk anyone down in range. Leo has one of the fastest charging ults and abilities in the game due to the fact that his spin to win counts as a continuous ability, and his normal ability timers are 6 seconds for his shield bash and 6 seconds for his spin to win. Yeah, so just go in there and start whacking away, except for bosses. You're still squishy as all heck, man. Okay, time for the plant. Flora's basic attack is a short range 3 jab combo that only hits 1 or 2 enemies at a time. There's no special stacking or anything with this one. Just yeah, what the heck? Where did that rock come from? Like I can't even damage this thing. But nah. Reset. As I was saying, yeah, your 2 basic attacks thrust in a straight line while the 3rd one sweeps. Honestly, if Fauna actually did something, that would be different. But what I actually found interesting is that if you spam the basic attack for a long time, the sweeping visual effect disappears. But if you wait about 3 seconds in between the animation resets, the visual comes back. And other than using heals and shields, there really is no strategy for Flora. Well, okay, I suppose, since she grants good shields and healing flowers that stay on the battlefield for about 2.5 to 3 seconds. Combo her with Leo and just have that extra buffer, but can you guys tell I really hate this character? She also apparently doesn't have an ult yet, but yeah, anyway. Alright, now it's time for our guy Zap. Zap is a unique character. Zap is all about finishing quickly. That's what she's. And burst damage is your best friend when it comes to this hero. Being very fast and dealing good damage, but also being extremely squishy. All of Zap's basic attacks have the lightning stack on it, which again, I really don't know what it does, but again, I think it just stacks electric mastery damage. Zap's first ability has him call down a lightning bolt from the sky, landing and dealing a burst of electric damage. After about 2 seconds, the current of electricity travels back towards Zap, doing continuous damage to anything that's in its current path, finally stopping when it reaches Zap. I found out after using this move a few times that you could actually have the lightning chase you. It has a slow startup time, but then it gains speed the longer it's out. I had a lot of fun seeing my lightning bolt just mow down anything that followed me too closely as I just ran from everything. His second ability is a dash that makes him shoot forward like a bolt of lightning. When an enemy interrupts his path, it triggers a slice and dice move that deals burst damage to the enemy he hits, and any enemies that's in close proximity to Zap. Zap has an extremely long timer on his ultimate, seeing as his moves are only used every 10 seconds. You don't use him for long because of his squishiness. Don't worry, guys. I'll get the ultimate one day. Alright, next up is Toga, the War Tortoise. He's a little bit unique for the melee heroes because he doesn't have a third basic attack. A 1-2 punch that does decent damage, nothing too crazy. His first ability is a huge shield that takes up 30% of his health bar, making him pretty much unstoppable. Because the timer when casting lasts exactly the same as it takes for the ability to reset, so you should just pretty much perma-spam that ability and you're good. His second ability is a giant iceberg that deals ice damage in a wide blast when Toga slams his club into the ground. It actually doesn't really do that much damage, but it is flashy. Also, if you see the screen lagging at this part of the video, it is literally because this specific dungeon spawn and the void with this amount of forest enemies crashes the game. It's almost as if the engine can't handle that many at once. I thought it was my phone at first because I had to reset it before, but nope, it's literally the game. And the only way to avoid having the game crash is to defeat the enemies as fast as you can. Toga's ultimate isn't too special. He leaps into the air and does AoE damage. Other than that, yeah, it's aight. Any strats for this guy is just to spam the armor button. Alright, now it's time for Doom. His basic attack is a standard projectile-based attack that doesn't have a feel-good 1-2-3 reset. He kind of throws them really slow, which is annoying when you're trying to auto enemies swarming you when your abilities are on cooldown. Also, random fact, you could throw or shoot through the walls at the start of the void levels for some reason. Huh. His first ability is actually really cool. It's kind of a mind control potion that, when thrown at a group of enemies, makes them turn on each other. They don't deal a lot of damage, but I wonder what it does on stronger enemies. Fadoom's second ability is the main one you use for all of your damage. Like, all of it. PH throws a poison potion that deals nature damage and absolutely melts enemies down to nothing. Like, not even joking, this thing does so much damage. Throw it down before you take the enemy aggro and they'll walk into it and take more damage as they have to walk over the entire hitbox. What's so stupid about his auto attack though is that if an enemy is close to you, the little hop animation that he does on his third attack just goes through the enemy. I have no idea why it does that, but it's really annoying. What's also interesting is that your mind control potion doesn't work unless you proc aggro, which again is another annoying thing. Oh, yeah, and the game froze again when I got to the Horde. One last thing about the mind control ability is that even when you have them aggro, it sometimes still doesn't work. Like it doesn't go off. They just kind of like pass through it. Hopefully they'll fix this bug. The last move in his kit is his ultimate, which is basically just Singe's ultimate from League of Legends. It unleashes a cloud of poison from the cauldron on your back, dealing DPS damage to any that walk within a deadly vapor. A funny thing about that though is that for some reason, even after the ultimate timer ended, the vapor cloud was still active, but didn't do any damage. And now it is time for... it's Rin. Okay, so her basic attack is her throwing a snowball. Awesome. Her first ability is her casting a whirling vortex around herself, dealing ice damage, and stacking ice somethings. Still have no idea what they are for. Her second ability is throwing a giant snowball. Wait a second. Nah, must be my imagination. It may look like I'm doing good damage, but this is literally a level 1 of the void. Baby Grunts should not be killing her this fast. That, and I have no armor on her. Wait. Her ultimate. It really does look familiar. Nah, no way. No way. Okay, I have saved the best for last. He's the Nord with a Ford, the Viking that loves ice cream. It's Olaf. For his basic attacks, he has a 3-hit move where his first swings his axe, then hammer, then spins around in a circle dealing damage around him. His first ability is a 3-strike combo that ends in an explosion of ice. He hits the ground dealing damage around him, using his weapons to hit in front of him, and then calls ice lightning from the His second ability is him leaping into the air and slamming down to do a huge burst of AoE damage, which ironically is exactly like Toga's ult, but just better. Now, I haven't talked a lot about passives because frankly I have no idea what they do because they haven't given out that information yet, but it's obvious what this one does. After fighting and using abilities and taking damage, you go into a godlike berserker rage that makes you grow big and glow a bright white light, enhancing all of his stats and turning him into an unstoppable killing machine. But, my dear friends, the best part about Olaf is that you should stack basically one of these stats, and that stat, my friends, is lifesteal. See, lifesteal on its own doesn't really do that much, but when Olaf goes into a berserker mode, he literally cannot die. He just can't die. It's crazy. And finally, his ultimate is a giant frigging ice axes that fall from the sky in a circle around him, dealing, of course, buttloads of damage. Oh man, we made it. We did it. We got through all the characters. We did all the current characters, man. Jeez, my back hurts. Ugh. But we're still not done. Now that we've gone through all of the characters, let me put them into my tier list. Okay. Alright, so this is my true and honest tier list, and so obviously we gotta start with the best character in the whole game, Rin. All the way down in D tier for don't play this character. I'm sorry, it's just no. C tier for cannot understand why this is a character in the game. Perfectly placed. Let's see. For Leo, I'd probably put him at B tier. He's okay. He's not great, but he's okay. I'll put Ember at S tier along with Olaf. Both of them are just set up for victory. They have really good kits and stats that really help them out, which I really like. I'm gonna put you at B tier. You're just a walking tank. Like, yeah, you're invincible, but if it takes you forever to get through a level, nah. And I'll put these two at A tier. I'm only putting Fadum and Zap at A tier 1 because Fadum has so many bugs that he needs to get fixed and that his abilities don't always hit, so I'll put him at A tier. And then with Zap, he's just too squishy and his cooldown times are too long for this type of character. You can't survive for very long. It's crazy. So yeah, this is where I'm going to put them, and this is where they're going to stay until I think otherwise. Okay, if you made it all the way to the very end of this video, I thank you, and I hope that any of this information will be helpful. In any case, that's the end, guys. I really do hope you enjoyed it, and if y'all could make my day, could you do me a huge favor and hit that like and subscribe button? That'd be amazing. Alright, that's it. That's my opinion. This is where I'm going to place the characters for now, and once this game gets all the way released and we see all these characters in their full glory, then maybe I'll do another video but like this, but for now, nah, that's it. Alright, until next time, guys, stay curious.